This is the Pod Go from Line 6. This is the latest release from Line 6 in their amp and effects modeling technology. In this video, I'm going to show you what this thing sounds like, talk about it, answer some of the most commonly asked questions that I have seen out there, and just give you our impression here at Worship Tutorials on the Pod Go. First, I have to show you, when you turn this thing on, this is the first thing you see. Check this out. If you don't know what that little silhouette is, it's one of these. This is the original Pod, the bean, the red bean from Line 6. And the Pod Go sort of is the next evolution in the line of Pod. Let's talk about what it is. Okay, so the first question that I've seen asked a lot is, what does it sound like? Does it sound any good? How does it compare to Helix or Stomp or HX Effects, anything like that? And I think part of the confusion that people have with this is the name Pod. They see the name Pod and they think Pod HD500X, or they think, is this something completely different? Is this new modeling technology? But the sounds that you get in the Pod Go are exactly the same as the HX line of effects. So it sounds exactly the same as the Helix, the LT, the HX Stomp, the HX Effects, Helix Native. The algorithms, the sounds that you get in the amp and effects modeling in the Pod Go is exactly the same as what you would expect from Helix. So anything you've heard from Helix or anything HX, you've basically heard what the Pod Go sounds like. Where it differs is how you set it up, how you can use it, how you can map things to these foot switches, the flexibility that you have in routing and that kind of thing. And that's why you know, the Pod Go might be the right fit for one person, whereas the HX Stomp might be the right fit for somebody else, and the HX Effects for another player. And then some players, like personally, I would choose the Helix Floor. That would be my go-to. But this thing might be perfect for you, given its price point, given its flexibility, its features, what it does. So first of all, let's look at the inputs and outputs, shall we? Okay, so you have the guitar in right here. That's just the regular old, guitar input. You can connect an expression pedal to it. So it comes with an expression pedal built in, but you can connect another expression pedal to it. It has a stereo effects loop built in. So this is a stereo send and a stereo send and a stereo return. It has main 1/4 inch outs right here. So you can run a left or mono output here, or you can run a stereo out, left and right out. This is a cool feature. It has an amp out. You can select what this amp out does. So you can select that it sends the output of the amp and no cab. So this would be handy if you're gonna run into something like a power cab with an IR speaker cab model in it, or something like that. This gives you an extra output for monitoring, or you can send it to recording software and just get the amp out only, and then you can apply different effects on it from there. And then you have a headphone out, and you have a USB connection where you can connect it to your computer to do updates, to use the editor, which I will show you in a little bit. Okay, on the front side, you've got 8 switches. 6 of them can be configured kind of to do different things. These that are labeled A, B, C, and D, and then up and down. Of course, you have a mode button, which is the same as Helix or Helix LT. Then you have your tap and tuner button. These are not capacitive touch switches like they are on the Helix. One of the things I love about the Helix, if you want to, like, say you have your overdrive mapped to this button, which I do, that's the heir apparent right there, you can just touch it and it brings it up so you can adjust it. Now on this one, what you can do is if you press it, like if you push this, it will select, but you can set it so that if you press something, it gives you the controls for it right here, and then you can use these knobs to change them. So here you can change the gain. You can see I'm changing things on the heir apparent overdrive model there. And these are all buttons as well. And then this layout should look familiar to you if you have HX Stomp. It's pretty much the same as HX Stomp. Then you got a volume. This expression pedal has a button built in. You can see it selected EXP1, EXP2. That's how that works. That's pretty much the ins and outs and the hardware unit, how this thing is set up. All right, so in a bit, I'm going to take you to the editor that Line 6 ships with this. It uses a new editor. It's not HX Edit. It's the PodGo editor. It looks similar, but it's a little bit different. I'll show it to you here in a bit. But first, I want to talk about who this could be for, what you can do with this. The first thing you should know when it comes to this is if I go to a blank preset, you can't really see it here, but there are certain blocks. There are, I'm going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different basically blocks in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those 10 are preset. You're locked into them. So the first one is the expression pedal, the volume basically. It's always a volume. You can't change it. The next one is a wah. It's always a wah. You can change the different wah pedal model, but you can't change it like to a compressor or something like that. Then you have 2 that are open spots that you can put anything in that you want. And then you have the effects loop out. You can't remove that. That's always there. You don't have to use it, but it's always there. Then you have an amp block and a cab block. Those always have to be either an amp or a cab. Now, again, you can turn them off. Like if you were going to use this for acoustic guitar, you didn't want amp modeling, you can turn it off. But you can't change it to something else, is what I'm saying. So it can be any amp model that's in the PodGo, but you can't change it. The next one is cab, same thing. Now you can run an IR in the cab spot. So it doesn't have to be a stock Line 6 cab, it can be an IR. But it can't be anything else. Then you have an EQ block. It has to be one of the EQs. Again, you can turn it off and not use it, but you can't like put a delay in its place. And then you have 2 more open blocks. So basically you have 4 blocks in the PodGo, 4 slots that you can put anything in that you want. They are in specific places. Now you can move things around a little bit and I'll show you that. But the other 6 you can't change. They are what they are. You can select one of the models of the category that it's there, but you can't change it to something else. And again, you don't have to use those, but you can't change them out. One thing to note is there are 2 effects models that are not in the PodGo that are in like the Helix. One is the Tone Sovereign, the king of tone, but it's basically, you can think of the Tone Sovereign as 2 heir apparents. That's how we set stuff up anyway. They just take up too much DSP. The other one, I believe, is the Cosmos Echo. If not, I will subtitle myself, but I think that's the other one that is not available. And the reason that is because of DSP. So the PodGo has slightly less than half of the DSP of the full Helix. It has about the same amount as the HX Stomp. They actually said it's a little bit less than the Stomp available DSP in this thing. So you can't do as much as a full Helix patch. You can't do dual amps, for example, but you can do a lot. So I've seen a lot of questions about how they set that up. I hope that clears it up for you, but I want to show you that even though you only have those 4 spots that you can put things in, you can do a ton with one of these units as far as flexibility, how you can set things up. You can cover a lot of ground. I'm going to show that to you here in a bit when I go to the editor with you. Welcome to my desk. I have the PodGo sitting right here. It's connected via left and right 1/4" stereo connection to my Universal Audio Apollo 8. That's how I always connect everything. I'm actually running it through a Behringer channel strip ADAT thing. I run all the stuff that I do, mostly guitar stuff, through that thing, in case you've ever wondered. I've got just connected my cable to the input for my guitar, and I've got like an 80s old school looking USB cable. You know when it's beige, you know when your cables are beige, that they're old. And so, but hey, it works. And this is how I'm connected to the PodGo software, which you are seeing here. First thing I want to do is to show you what I was talking about earlier when I said there are certain effects that you're locked into. So let's just go to a new preset. And this is something I was goofing with earlier. Let's just go to this new preset. All right, this is what you get out of the box from line 6. It comes in with the with one of the Fender amps, but let's just start from the left and go across. So this is your volume block. You can either have a volume pedal, you can have a gain, pan, or stereo width effect, and that's it. You can't make it anything else. So, you know, I like volume, and by default, this thing is assigned to, if you push this little button right here, it shows your pedal assignments down here, which is actually a really slick interface. It's assigned to expression 1, I believe, no, 2, sorry, EXP2. And then the toe, actually, if you right click on it, you can bypass assign or not. I don't like the toe switch turning my volume off, so I always set that to none. All right, and then, you know, as you push the volume pedal, it goes. I like mine to be logarithmic. We're not gonna set up a whole patch here. I just wanna show you what I'm talking about. The next thing is the wah block, and you cannot change this to something else. You can choose any of the wah pedals in the Pod Go or the Helix or anything, but you can't change it to something else. Line 6, if you're watching this video, I would love for the option to change the wah into something else. I know wah is a pedal that's widely used by a lot of genres, but for praise and worship, which is you know, a lot of praise and worship players use line 6 stuff, we rarely ever use wah. There is a classic part in Mighty to Save, the song Mighty to Save. Nigel Hindroff uses the wah pedal, but most of the time we don't use it. I would love to be able to make that a compressor. Maybe make it wah or comp. That would be nice. I don't know if there's DSP limitations. My 2 cents, if you asked for it. You didn't ask for it, but you got it anyway, if you're watching. Okay, so moving on, you get 2 of the blocks that you can make anything you want. So you could make this a distortion or drive block. Hey, look at these icons. I like this. This is obviously a Klon, right? So there's the Minotaur. You can throw that in there. The next thing, say you did want a compressor, you can put the deluxe comp in here. But here's the cool thing. Now, I said that you're kind of locked into where they are in the chain. I was wrong. I've corrected myself. You can move these around. You can move the wah or the volume all the way to the end of the chain if you want to and leave it there. So your flexibility in the chain is there. You can't make a parallel path, for example. That's not an option, okay? But you can move these around. So say you want your volume after your drive, you can do that. So the next thing you run into is the effects loop, which is off by default. You can make this a stereo effects loop or a mono effects loop. The next thing is the amp block. Now you can choose any of the amps that are in the Helix, or you can choose bass amps. I saw some questions that popped up after I posted about this. Are the bass amps in here? Can you use this for bass? Absolutely you can. I would choose one of these Ampeg SVT bass amps. They're awesome, but you can do that. You can also choose just a preamp. The Studio Tube Pre is nice, like if you're running an acoustic guitar in it, or you can just, you know, if you're doing an acoustic patch, which we will have available here at Worship Tutorials, you can just turn the amp block off. So you can turn it off, leave it off, but you can't change it to something else. And then the amp, or the cab block is next, so you can run any of the cabs in the Helix. You cannot run dual cabs, by the way, another thing you can't do that you can in something like the Stomp. Or you can run an IR. You can run a 1024 IR. If you select it, it automatically pulls your impulses up. Here are all my Tone Junkie IRs, and they all sound beautiful. Jonathan is killing it over there, Tone Junkie. The next thing you run into is the EQ block, which is cool. I use EQ in every patch, basically. So you can choose any of these EQs. Then you run into the the next 2 blocks that you can do whatever you want with. Personally, I would put a delay in one. Let's, you know, I would put the tape delay here. Then I would put a reverb in the other. And as you can see, the Glitz reverb is in here. So as you can see, we've got an amp, we've got a cab, an EQ, a tape delay, an HX delay, an HX reverb, the Glitz verb. You've got a compressor and a drive all inside of the Pod Go. That is a lot of stuff. I did confirm that, you know, if you put like this EQ at the end of the chain and you have a stereo effect, like if you're, you know, like say you, oops, I don't want to assign a controller to that. Let's say I'm turning my trails on. I'm going to use the spread to 100 and turn the scale down to 75% with a quarter note delay. That will give you a stereo quarter note and dotted eighth note delay. That's a little trick. I'm not going to go into how to do that here. Watch the Helix patch build video that I uploaded. I'll show you how you do that. This delay is going to be in stereo. Check this out. And if I have this EQ block on after it, it retains the stereo image. So that is not causing things to go to mono. All right, so I hope that gives you an idea of what you can do in a patch. I'm going to show you now sort of how you can use the foot switches to do more, fun stuff, make things more versatile. So this is our free AC30 patch. I'm just going to walk through it really quickly. This is how it sounds, sort of its clean sound. That's what a good AC30 is supposed to sound like, in my opinion. All right, so the first thing I have is the volume. Actually, you know what? I might change that so the volume's after the drive. You can do whatever you want. The wah block, again, I don't use wah. Again, line 6, love to be able to use a compressor here. And then I have the compressor block. This is my favorite compressor in the Helix, or the Pod Go now. Then I have an Air Apparent overdrive. Now the overdrive is mapped to button A. So you can see I'm turning it on and off. If you have your sort of, foot switch assignment thing, screen turned on, I don't know what they call this, you can see that the Air Apparent is mapped to foot switch 5. You can change that. I can map it to something else, whatever. It's really simple to do. But I have things mapped to all these other buttons, so I'm not going to change things right now. The next thing, well, there's the volume. I moved it. The next thing in the chain is the effects loop, which I'm not using. Again, can't turn it off. Next is the amp, the AC30 Fawn normal. The cab, which I'm using an IR in this case from Tone Junkie. And then the EQ block. That's there. You can't change that to something else, but that's no problem because I use it anyway. Now here's the first trick I want to show you. So the next thing is the delay block. I wanted something in this patch. Brad and I talked about this. Bradford, I haven't even seen Bradford in like a month. Social distancing, right? We're doing it here in North Carolina. But we talked on the phone via text about this, how we wanted to set this up. So in the off setting, I have this block mapped to button C. So you can see I pushed it and it's changing a bunch of stuff. So we don't have this set so you can turn the delay off. What we have is in the off position is sort of a subtle quarter note delay. Okay? When you turn it on, I've mapped 3 parameters to this button. The first thing that happens is changes from quarter to a dotted eighth note, which is a cool trick. Next thing that happens is the feedback goes way up, and I like this display. This is different than Helix, so I wonder if this is coming to HX Edit. It gives you a little arrow that indicates what the low value is and what the high value is. I believe you can just move it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You can also select this button, and you can see down here at the bottom, it gives you the minimum and maximum values. So when the button is off, that's the minimum value. When it's on, that's maximum value. So I've set it on minimum or on maximum to change to dotted eighth note delay, much larger feedback and a larger mix. So it goes from sort of a subtle delay to a big delay. Let me demonstrate. Here's the big delay. The next thing is reverb. My reverb settings, basically doing the same thing. I have a glitz reverb that's sort of subtle when it's off. So you can still hear that ambient glitz thing, but it's way in the background. When you turn this on, it gooses the decay and the mix, and now it's a big ambient thing. Turn on the delays, and it's even bigger. You could even do like swells with something like this. It It wouldn't be as big as like the big crazy swells that we can do in the Helix patches that we have, but it would let you do some ambient stuff. Let's spend just a little bit of time talking about how this thing compares to something like the Stomp, the HX Stomp. Because I posted a little clip of this thing to Facebook and immediately I got a bunch of questions like, what would you recommend, this or the Stomp, this or the LT? And it just depends on your needs, on what you want. So you could think of this kind of as an HX Stomp with more buttons, okay? It is cheaper than an HX Stomp. It's also a little less flexible than the Stomp. So the Stomp, for example, you have 6 blocks in it. So you have more blocks in here. This is technically 10. But you have 6 blocks in the Stomp, but you can do, for example, dual amps in stereo. You can't do that with the Pod Go. Only 1 amp, 1 cab. The HX Stomp, you can have an amp and 2 cabs, and the cabs can be in stereo. That's a cool thing to do. You can do different types of signal routing, like you can put 2 delays in parallel rather than series in the Stomp. You don't have that option with the Pod Go. You can have 6 different overdrives on in the Stomp if you wanted. Can't do that with the Pod Go. You could have 4 overdrives, but you can't have 6. So the Stomp is a little more flexible in what you can do with it, and it has a tiny bit more DSP from what I understand. So if I were going to advise somebody what they should buy, the first thing that you should ask yourself is, what do I want to do with it? So if you want an all-in-one rig, something really simple but flexible, small, easy to carry around, can get you drives, delays, reverbs. This thing is pretty hard to beat, especially for the price. If you want something that can do, you know, dual amps and sit at the end of your pedal board and maybe give you a few effects as well, reverb and delay or something like that, or maybe modulation, the HX Stomp is probably what you would want instead of the Pod Go. But again, it's the same sounds. So I want to re-emphasize that this thing sounds exactly the same as the Stomp, as the Helix, as the LT, as Native, as the HX effects. And really, if it's for you, is a question of your needs. How are you going to use it? If you want just a simple grab and go all-in-one board with an amp, this is it. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions about the Pod Go, let us know below. We're going to have a lot of patches available for this. We're going to make our whole line of Helix patches available. The ones that are applicable, of course, dual amp patches, for example, won't work on this thing. But we'll have a lot of patches available at worshiptutorials.com. The free AC30 patch, which you have been listening to in this video a little bit, available, link below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.